Welcome back, everyone, to Diamonds 2019. I'm Sarah, your host, and I hope that you all had a great lunch and were able to rest a little bit. And now we have our first session for this afternoon, which is again with Isabella Morganthal, and she's going to be talking about busy schedules and chronic illness, which I'm very excited about because that sounds hard. And if you remember, Isabella is the author of 5 wonderful books, is just an awesome person all around. So welcome, Isabella.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you all for coming back and watching again. I learned that if you're getting ready to speak for a conference, you should probably not take a nap without setting an alarm, because my goal was to, after I spoke this morning, I was like, I'll eat lunch and then I'll take just a quick nap, and then I'll practice my speech a little bit. Well, I forgot to set my alarm, so I only woke up a couple of minutes ago. So I haven't really rehearsed this much today. So I hope I can still share some helpful thoughts and ideas for all of you guys. So as Sarah said, and if you were here earlier, you know that my name is Isabella. But as my new friends, which is what I like to call you guys today, as my new friend, you can just call me Bella. And so I'm 21 years old. And if you've never heard of me before, or if you weren't on the earlier session, let me share with you just a little bit of background on me and my chronic illness and health journey. I've been fighting chronic illness for the majority of my life through my chronic migraines, but my really intense battle began about 3.5 years ago when I started fighting the migraines and stomach problems and pain and chronic fatigue syndrome. And so that's been the harder part of my journey. Throughout all of 2018, I added up the days that I spent that I actually had healthy, and I had 68 healthy days in 2018. And when I look at that, I'm first tempted to think, well, that was only 68 days out of 365 that I actually felt okay. And but I'm actually honestly really grateful for those 68 days, because I know that many of you, many of my friends who fight chronic illness didn't have that many. And so I'm very grateful for them. But that's a little glimpse into the struggle that I've been dealing with. But despite being sick, I lead a very busy schedule, which can sometimes be difficult to keep up with. I work part-time in student and family ministries. I'm also involved in various different activities. I've been a writer since I was about 8 years old. So I've been writing. I launched my own magazine for young girls when I was about 15. And so now we've got almost 200 subscribers, and I have a team of about 15 other young ladies that help me write this magazine and put it out every other month. And so that can keep me busy. I also run my own blog. And so I blog there twice a week, which can be awesome, but it can get a little overwhelming at times. So my biggest help there is scheduling posts in advance. I also write as much as I can, whether that's guest posts or my own blogs or devotionals. I'm a writing ambassador for a ministry that I love with all of my heart, called Lena Roses. And I've published 5 books, as Sarah said. My first book came out in 2015 when I was 18, and it was called I Dare You, Finding Your Passion, Lighting Your World. And my latest book, which was a devotional, my longest book actually, at like 310 pages, I think. That one was called Journey of Faith, a devotional for young women. And that one released just last year, or well, about a year or so ago. Yeah, something like that. And so on top of all of that, I'm also a writing coach. So one of my closest friends and I launched our own writing coaching business about a year ago. And so we coach young writers and encourage them. And so all of that is sort of just an introduction into my busy schedule and my life. And when I'm fighting a chronic illness, it can all be a little bit difficult to juggle all of these different things that are pulling for my time or pulling for my attention, all of the different people in my life who need me and who need my attention, people that I love and all these things that I love. And while I do love all of these things so much, more than I could ever tell you, it's all my passion and my calling. It can be difficult when fighting a sickness, trying to just manage all of it. Managing a busy life can sometimes just be hard in general, whether you're sick or not. And so if you're fighting chronic illness, you know how much more difficult it is to manage a busy schedule. So over the last few years, I have fought this battle with my health. I have learned a few things about managing a busy schedule while you're sick. And so I want to share some of my tips and encouragement mostly. Some of them are practical, and then some of them are just things that I know that you already know, but that I want to remind you of while managing a busy schedule with a chronic illness. And so if you're the note-taking kind, it might be a good idea for you to have a pen and paper handy that you can just jot down some notes. I'm going to sort of give you these tips in sort of a 1, 2, 3 kind of format, so you can just jot them down if you want. But my first tip or encouragement for you when handling a busy schedule while being sick is I want you to remember that it is not your responsibility to keep up with anyone else. And this sentence resonates with me most as a chronic warrior, as a chronic pain warrior, but also just as a person, because all of us, whether we are fighting chronic pain or whether we're just a regular human, all of us can relate to this sort of expectation of needing to measure up to what everyone else is doing and what everyone else thinks that we should be doing. In our culture today, you see a constant pressure or stress to keep up with everyone else your age and make sure you're doing all the things that the world thinks that you should be doing. And oh, if this person has such and such a job, or that person is doing such and such a thing, you should be doing all of those things too, or have a better job, or make sure you're doing this. And our culture has almost turned life into a competition or a race or a timeline of events that they want you to abide by. And if you don't, then you're strange or you're falling behind or you don't measure up. And honestly, regardless of whether or not you're sick, it's never your responsibility to keep up with someone else's success or make your life mirror someone else's. The world says that at 16, you should have your own driver's license and your own car, and that by 16, you should probably have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and that by 18, you should definitely know what school you want to go to, because you should definitely have all of your life choices picked out by then to know exactly what you want to do when you grow up. And by the time you're in your 20s, you should probably know who you're going to marry, and you should be getting married. And by the time you're 30, you should be thinking about kids. And this is the stuff that the world always tells us that we should be abiding by, their timeline. And I may be over dramatizing this just a little bit, but I think you get my point. The world wants us to keep up with an impossible speed and an impossible timeline that not everyone is made to fit into or to conform to. The Bible itself tells us that we are not to conform to this world. And it's okay if you don't keep up with the timeline that the world thinks that you should have for your life. You're you. God made you unique. He gave you special gifts and abilities and talents. He created a special timeline for your life that is just unique to you. No one else has the same timeline for their life as you do. No one else has the same story for their life as you do. And so he has a perfect timeline for your life, no matter what it looks like. And he'll get you where he wants you when he wants you there. So your number one thing is to not stress out if you're not meeting all of those achievements or milestones that the world thinks that you should be achieving at such and such an age or such and such a time, because you're not living according to their timeline. You're living life, and life is not a competition, and it's not a race. You do not need to be measuring up to all of those expectations that they constantly put on you, because God has a plan for your life, and that's the only thing that you need to be following. So next, the second thing is that I want you to remember that setting manageable goals is so much more important than setting numerous goals. One of the hardest things for me to accept about my chronic illness was that there were certain things that I couldn't always do in the day like I had before. And honestly, I mean, I still get a whole lot done. Sometimes it's because I can tend to be a little bit of an overachiever and push myself too hard. But over the last year, especially, even the last 6 months of my life, I've been learning that it's okay to set small goals. It's okay if I don't get 100 things accomplished in one day. It's okay if I don't do all of these things that I think I should be doing because I want to overachieve. I can't always have a 15-point to-do list and smash every single one of my goals in one afternoon. And if I still tried to keep up with that pace, and I have tried to do that, I wear myself out even more. I make myself more sick. I get more migraines. I get more stomach problems. I get more exhausted. My brain fog gets worse. And I stress myself out to the point of having a breakdown. So do you feel me on that? Like, am I the only one who just tries to push through the sickness and tries to be normal? My definition of normal, I guess you could say, and try to do all the things that I think I should be doing. If I could make a to-do list with 15 items on it now, but if I could only accomplish 1 or 2 of those things in one afternoon, then I would feel even more stressed, or I would feel like I was a failure because I had failed to reach the goal that I set for myself that day. And maybe you can understand that too. Maybe you're making to-do lists or goals that have so many items on them, but you can't achieve all of those things. And so you come to the end of your day and you see that you accomplished 1, 2, or 3 of them, and you didn't accomplish all the rest of them. And so you feel completely discouraged and just like you failed at life. Maybe that's just me. I would suggest that many of you probably feel the same way. And so this is why when you're facing a chronic health situation, it is vital to set manageable goals for yourself, not just numerous goals. And something that helps me is prioritizing my to-do list. So if I know that I have such and such a thing to do by this time, and then this thing over here I have to get accomplished by this time, I'll focus on what comes first. I'll give it my best and I'll work on it, and then I'll get over to this next thing. And that's how I prioritize my schedule a little bit to help make it a little bit more manageable for me, so I don't have all of these things on me at once. As a writer, I have a lot of different writing assignments, my magazine, my blog, other people's magazines or blogs that they've invited me to write for, or being a writing ambassador for the ministry that I told you about earlier. And so I have deadlines for all of these different writing projects. And so if I have one deadline that's maybe January 15th or one that's January 27th, then I would make sure that I get my January 15th one done first. And then after that, work on my January 27th one. And that's just a way that I sort of prioritize my schedule so that I don't have all of these writing assignments on me at once and think, oh, I have to get all of these done right now, because then I would just overwhelm myself and not get any writing done at all. So even though you're sick, setting goals is still important because you'll feel more accomplished, and have a better idea of what you need to get done with your day. But your to-do list does need to be manageable, for you and your health. And only you know what that means, what manageable looks like for you. Maybe that's one goal. Maybe it's 6 goals. Maybe it's 10 goals. But whatever it looks like for you, it doesn't have to look the same as somebody else. It's not a comparison game. It doesn't have to look like my schedule. It doesn't have to look like Sarah's schedule. It doesn't have to look like your favorite blogger's schedule. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's schedule. These are goals and a schedule that work for you. They're goals that are manageable for you, what you can handle with your health. If you think that you can only accomplish 2 goals on a certain day, go for those 2 goals. Give your best shot to those 2 goals. And if you get them done, awesome, and you have time to do more and you have energy and your health is doing good and you can get more done, go for it. But if you set small goals and you set these manageable goals for yourself, you're going to feel more accomplished. Even if the goals are as simple as something like reply to emails or wash the dishes, it'll benefit you more to make smaller goals than it would to do numerous goals that you would never have the energy to accomplish or get to. So my third thing that I want you to remember is that you never have to justify your rest or your health to other people. That is not your responsibility. I know that in the back of our minds and deep down, we do know this, but it can be so easy to forget sometimes. And you just need that reminder that you do not have to convince other people that you're sick. You do not have to convince anyone of why you're only setting 1 or 2 goals a day, or why you're only doing such and such a thing, or why you haven't done this, or you haven't reached this goal or milestone that they think you should be doing. It's not your responsibility to justify it, to convince them of why you're sick or how you're sick. It's not your responsibility to make them understand. Some people will understand right away. Those are your people. Those are your people who are your core team of people who will understand, encourage you, and be there for you when you're feeling down because of your sickness. But it's not your responsibility to convince anybody else of why you're sick or why you're setting the goals or the schedule or the times or the future of your life, your different goals and things, the way that you are. One of the harder things for me being sick is keeping up with text messages or emails. If you know me at all, you know that it can sometimes be about a couple of days before I reply to text messages. And that's honestly putting it nicely, because it's more like a week before I would actually get around to replying to your text message and respond, or your Hangouts message or your Instagram message. I can really be the worst at replying to messages. And if I'm honest with you, I feel absolutely horrible about this. Like, this is one of the things that really just bothers me. I hate having all these notifications on my phone and I don't respond to them, and I don't get around to replying. Just the other day, I had 23 text messages on my phone, and I didn't have the energy to respond because I had migraine, and I didn't have the energy to respond to any of them. So I didn't open them, because one of my worst things that I do is I open text messages, think I reply, but I didn't actually reply to them. And we're going to blame that on my brain fog. But so I have learned that if I don't open them, I'll remember to get back to them later. But I remember just how horrible it made me feel, because all of these wonderful people that I love, friends, people that I just adore, were trying to get in touch with me, and I just didn't have the energy to respond. And so for a long time, this was a major area of stress in my life, because I felt like I was letting people down, or I felt like I was hurting people's feelings, or I was making people mad at me. And I'm a people pleaser, so I don't like to make people mad at me. So this was just a constant source of stress for me. And so even I would constantly push myself. And even when I was having a really hard health day, I had a migraine, or I was tired and exhausted and just didn't really have the energy to respond to people or carry on a conversation, even if I wanted to and I loved them, but I just didn't have it in me physically to do it, I would push myself and push myself to the point that I would make sure I was replying so that people didn't get upset with me. And then I would only get more sick because it was stressful for me to push myself to do that. And then I would cry and have a mini meltdown about all of the things that I needed to do and all the people that I needed to reply to because I loved them and I didn't want them to be mad at me. And then I would just be stressed out and would trigger more health problems. My stomach would get worse. My headaches would get worse. I would be more exhausted. And it would just be a cycle that would repeat all over again. And it wasn't fun. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but that is a little bit of how I used to be, because I always felt like I had to justify to people like why I wasn't able to respond or carry on conversations all the time like I used to. So I hope I'm not the only one. I hope this sounds a little bit familiar to you. So I'm not the only crazy one out there. And so for a long time, what I would do is I would wait a few days to reply to text messages until I was feeling better, but then I would constantly apologize. So I would say, I'm so sorry that I didn't reply to you. I was sick and this is how I was sick. And I'm just really sorry. I'm not feeling well, and just try to explain all about my sickness and why I didn't reply and all of these things, trying to justify that, yes, I was sick. I wasn't just ignoring you. I actually had a legitimate reason, and trying to justify this to the people in my life. Finally, I got myself to a point where I was okay with not replying to text messages, and I was okay with not always justifying my sickness. And so instead of apologizing, something that I would do is I would actually I would thank people. I would thank people for their patience with me. I would thank them for waiting for a response from me. I would say things like, thank you for your patience, for waiting for my response today, or thanks for not giving up on me when I'm fighting my sickness. Thank you for being there. Thank you for waiting on me. This got me to a point mentally where I recognized that I didn't have to prove to somebody else that I was sick or that I had a legitimate reason for not replying to them, that I had a legitimate reason for needing a rest. And it got me to a point where I was okay with that. So that's a big one for me. But I don't want you to forget, no matter what it might be for you. Maybe you're totally fine not responding to text messages or emails, or maybe you reply to them fine and you're nothing like me and you're one of those really fast texters that we all need more of in this world. But whatever your situation may be, where you feel like you need to prove to other people that you're sick, it's not your responsibility to do that. It's important to make the people in your life feel loved and valued, and to remind them that they have a place in your life and that you love them and you care about them. But it's also important to take care of yourself and to not push yourself to the point of having a mini breakdown and hurting your health even more. So you can love the people in your life. You can remind them how valued they are to you. But you can also let them know that sometimes you can't always respond, but you don't have to justify to them why. So my next thing is, I want you to remember that you are a human being and not a human doing. It's okay if all you did today was take a shower. Chronic illness is hard. Every single one of us knows this fact. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, we know how hard it is to have a chronic illness. And so it's okay when you have the bad days. It's okay when you have days that you cancel your to-do list. It's okay that you have days when you stop doing so much. It's okay that you have days when you put your busy schedule on hold. Obviously, there are some things in your life that you can't put on hold. There are some things that you have to do, even if you're sick. But there are other things that you have to recognize the priority in them. And you have to recognize that if you're having a bad day, it's okay to put it off for another day. And it's okay if all you did was get up, take a shower, and that's all you had the energy or the strength for. Sometimes the most important thing that you can do on days like that is focus on getting better and rest in Jesus. One of my favorite passages of scripture is actually Matthew 11:28-30. It says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, and you will find rest for your souls." And Jesus wanted to make sure that he took care of his people's hearts and not just had them constantly doing. Actually, I wasn't planning on sharing this, and so I don't even actually know where it is, the passage of scripture that I'm looking for. I think it's in Mark. If somebody does know, you're welcome to tell me later, but I can't think of where it's at because I wasn't planning on sharing this. It just came to me. But I think it's in Mark, where Jesus and his disciples had just finished, I think it was one miracle. I think it was the feeding of the 5,000 or something like that. And Jesus took his disciples away to have them rest. He took them away to give them a break and to rest and to sort of regroup after all of the excitement, everything that had happened. And I love this because it shows Jesus encouraging his people to take time to rest and to just be with him. Yeah, they'd been doing a lot for him. They've been learning a lot from him, but he just wanted them to rest and to be with him. It reminds me too of Mary and Martha. When Martha was running around wanting to do all of these things for Jesus, and Mary was just taking time to sit at the feet of Jesus and be with Jesus. Jesus told Martha that Mary had chosen what was most important, and that was to be with Jesus. And in this crazy world that we live in, we're constantly told to do, that everyone's rushing here, rushing there. There's always something going on, and that rest is something that you don't really see or hear a lot about in our culture and our world today. And so this idea of rest, it's a lot more difficult for us to sometimes grasp. But I want you to remember that you're a human being, you're not a human doing, and that God wants you to just take time to rest, to be with him, to build your strength from him. And that actually leads me into the final thing that I want you to remember. And that is that sometimes the bravest thing that you can do is to just breathe. For 2019, I always, at the beginning of a new year, I always pick a word that I want to be my word of the year. And so in 2018, my word of the year was hope. So for 2019, I threw around a lot of different ideas of what I wanted to choose. And I finally decided that I wanted to choose the word breathe, because the word breathe, this word kept coming back to me over and over. And over the last 6 months of my life, probably, it was something that God's really been instilling in me, is that you need to just take time to breathe. Don't constantly be doing stuff. Don't constantly be trying to keep up with this hectic pace and have all of these different conversations going on all the time and all these different voices in your head, trying to take all of your attention. Just take time to breathe and to be with Jesus. And there's a song that I would encourage you to listen to. It's called Breathe, actually, and it's by Johnny Diaz. I believe I put it in the study guide, the portion that I wrote for this session. But breathe can sometimes be hard for me to follow this word of just breathe, just to be still, to release my schedule, everything else that's demanding of me, and just to take a deep breath and to just breathe. And a lot of times when you're just breathing, people can think of that as weak, or if you're not busy doing all these things constantly, people can think of it as not a good thing. But to me, it's one of the bravest things that you can do. because it takes a lot of courage to release it and let it go to God and to just breathe. So that's my last thing that I wanted you guys to know. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Isabella. That is such great advice. You know, it's easy to feel like we're not doing enough, but breathing sounds of this video, or click the link in the email that you should be receiving. Doable. So everyone, you can go ahead and click, go to the Q&A and ask Isabella all of you. See you in a few minutes.